No, me too. Okay, good morning, Timothy. I could see you dancing behind the scenes, and it's always fun to watch you do that. So, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the fun. And good morning to everybody watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, listening to us in Clubhouse. It is, wow, it is August the 25th today, and we are here with the 185th session of Japanese Politics One on One, and of course, with the star of the show, Timothy Langley. Timothy, your mic is muted, so I hope that when you start talking, everybody. Okay, thank you for unmuting yourself, and I'll just pass it to you because we have to be brisk and quick.
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay, it's on to you.
Thank you very much, Maya. Good morning, everybody. Maya, you are off your regular location. Where are you today?
Well, I'm in Nishizu, so I'm in the house of our cousins. So borrowing the place here or renting the space maybe is a better word, so that everybody's still asleep, but well, you
So
can
are you
see
on the coast?
I'm on the coast. Yes, I'm just about 30 meters from the coast. There is
Wow.
a very nice harbor here, which is really beautiful, with a lot of tropical fishes too. And
So you're further south than Shimoda, actually.
I believe I am. So this is the western part of the Shizuoka Peninsula,
Hmm.
and I think that yes, it is further south. We're quite in the middle of the way, on the middle of the way to the tip of the peninsula. So yes, and it's a
Okay.
beautiful place. Yeah,
Maybe 3 hours, 4 hours from Tokyo?
four
Okay.
four
So
hours. Yes,
lucky you. Maya, I am reporting today once again from the marina Yume no Shima, Island of Dreams.
yes.
Excuse me. It is a sailing and fishing harbor right downtown. You can see probably some of the skyline of Tokyo just in the background.
Beautiful.
And I've been here for the last couple of weeks working on a friend's boat and making good progress, but it has been hot. And yeah, I always look forward to waking up Sunday to have this briefing with you.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. So, well, I appreciate that. We know that our audiences appreciate this too. So, if you don't mind me, can I say thank you to our sponsors, and
Oh,
then we'll
sure.
row
Get
in
on with
from.
it.
Okay, thanks very much for this, Timothy. Okay, so once again, thank you very much to Kanachu.com, who offers bilingual services to individuals who want to buy and sell real estate in Tokyo and Yokohama. The company does this in two languages, English and Japanese. And if you have met James Howell already and know him, you are definitely aware of his willingness to always meet your needs the way they are. So the services there are customized. And once again, if you're not sure about your Japanese or about your English, please reach out to them in the language that is more comfortable for you to communicate it in, and they will talk with you. So reach out to James Howell at james@kanachu.com or connect with him on LinkedIn. And Timothy, I apologize for keeping you waiting. So let's start straight away and go from uh, the bullet points into the deep
Okay.
dive.
Thank you very much. And Maya, let's wrap it up early today. I know you're traveling, you're with your family. You have some family things to do today. And
Yes,
also, the sun is going to start hitting me out of this shade pretty soon. And
sure.
so let's just get on with it. The dollar yen ratio was 146.07 on Friday. It improved pretty incredibly since last week. So there are signs that the economy is beginning to percolate a little bit, but we've got such turmoil politically that it'll probably take up most of my briefing today. And then I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible. I know most of the people on the show are already well familiar with the personalities and the dynamics that are going on here. And my role is to just keep you up to date, let you know what's going on, what it possibly means, and what to expect in the near term. So we do this briefing once a week, every week, to keep you up to date. The leadership race has been decided last week. Maya, can you turn off your
Yes,
microphone so we
my cat
hear
is
you?
not here though.
That's She didn't go. Okay. The leadership race. So the election committee had their second meeting on the 20th, and then they decided how long the date, how long the campaign would be, and when the specific date was. So we didn't know this last week. It was maybe 4 or 5 days ago that the election committee met, and they decided to push off the election date to the 27th. So that means it's 15 days of election campaigning for the next president of the LDP. And they did this because they perceive that the number of candidates is going to be the largest in post-war history. Right now, it looks like it might potentially be 12. I'm guessing probably 8, maybe 9. But I'd like to walk through those candidates, the top candidates, for you. So the date is set for the 27th, the last Friday of the month. They were going to do it the second Friday of the month. And let me see, 18 days away right now. So we reported last week that Kobayashi from Chiba, the Chiba prefecture, 4-term member of the lower house, he tossed his hat in on Monday, and then Mr. Ishiba tossed his hat in. So there are 2 candidates formally who have received the 20 endorsements from their fellow members of the parliament. And we expect to have a rash more coming up. In the meantime, the Constitutional Democratic Party is also having their leadership race, and it's getting also dicey. They try to not have it conflated with the LDP election, but that's exactly what's happened. I don't know if it's by design or by the LDP tweaking the nose of the Constitutional Democratic Party, but they've set their leadership selection for the 23rd. Normally, if the date for the election for the LDP was on the 20th, they would have been able to perhaps ride on 2 or 3 days of open news so that they could highlight that. But now, on the 23rd, the LDP race is hot and heavy, and 4 days away from being decided. So the Constitutional Democratic Party, they caught a lot of heat for it, and it caused actually a lot of controversy and has created the situation we have right now, where Kenta Izumi, who is the leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party, is being challenged. He's being challenged by the fellow he beat the last time that this election happened in 2021, and usurped the leadership from Mr. Edano. And now Mr. Edano wants to come back. He's been sitting in the sidelines watching Mr. Izumi guide the party, and he seems a little bit bitter. He wants to have another shot at it. But he's not the only one. It looks like Mr. Noda, who was prime minister when the opposition party took power from the LDP, Mr. Noda was the prime minister. He's also in the Constitutional Democratic Party. And he's thinking maybe I should be running this shop because, with all of this turmoil in the LDP, it could be that the opposition party now has a shot to take over power once again. And who's better to do that? Not this kid Izumi, maybe me. I'm seasoned. So there's a lot of controversy going on there. So this month, well, actually we're still in August, but September is going to be very active, and there's going to be a lot going on. And then just to make things a little bit more interesting, Komeito, the day after the election for the LDP president, Komeito will have their party convention. It's not supposed to be a leadership race or an election, but the current president, Mr. Yamaguchi, has been there for 15 years, and he's thinking maybe it's a little bit time for somebody younger to take over the reins. But at the same time, he's in a coalition with the LDP, and them having a new leader and the Komeito having a new leader is probably not such a great idea. And plus, he let out, we've reported this before, he let out that we really don't want to change leadership and give it over to somebody who hasn't been really, truly battle tested if there's going to be a general election. So what this suggests is that there will be an election for president of the LDP. He will thereby become prime minister maybe 10 days later. He'll form his cabinet, and probably in pretty close order within maybe a month or 2 months, certainly before the end of the year, there will be a general election. He'll close down the House and go for election and say to the voters, this is for your mandate to give me to run the company. You've gotten my policy speeches and what I'm going to be doing, and you've probably received some economic stimulus package that I just passed last week, so vote for me. I expect that kind of scenario to unfold. Of the candidates that have officially announced, as I said earlier, it's Mr. Kobayashi and Mr. Ishiba. Mr. Ishiba, this will be his 5th time running for prime minister. He was unsuccessful in the last 4, obviously. Mr. Kobayashi's first chance, he's 49 years old. He was first out of the shot, and I think that really stood him for great kudos to be the first out. I think he's going to be a very strong candidate, but we anticipate maybe 10 more. Not quite sure. And this idea about the factions being dead, and what's going on with the factions, and are they still alive? This election brings into clear focus that the factions have taken a back step. You have the policy study groups that have taken over where the factions were, but the factions in previous elections, it was always the faction bosses who got together. They would select who their candidate is, or maybe their faction would select them spontaneously to be the candidate. So you'd only have 2 or 3, maybe 4 candidates in the faction era politics. But now the factions, there's only one faction, Mr. Aso's faction, and he's got possibly 2 candidates in his camp that could possibly be, prime minister. So this has never happened in the past, where there would be a candidate or 2 candidates from the same faction. Mr. Aso has the same situation, and who else has the same situation? It's Mr. Aso and Mr. Kishida's faction. Mr. Hayashi, the foreign minister, has decided, the chief cabinet secretary has decided that he's going to throw his hat in the ring probably on Tuesday. He's chief cabinet secretary, so he's all over the place. He was a little bit soft on a commitment given his schedule, but I think he's going to throw his hat in the ring. And then Ms. Kamikawa, who is also the foreign minister, also in the Kishida cabinet, has announced that she will get her 20 votes, her 20 endorsements, and probably throw her hat in later this week. Kono Taro is expected to throw his hat in tomorrow. Koizumi is, wow, he's such in the news. Everybody just wants him to run for prime minister. It's a little bit curious. He says that he's going to announce on Friday. And Sanai Takaichi, you know that she came in 3rd place. It was Kishida, Kono Taro, and Takaichi. The last time we went through this, she is most likely going to throw her hat into the ring. She's a strong contender. Let me see. You've got Mr. Motegi, Toshimitsu Motegi, who is the Secretary General of the LDP. He met with Mr. Aso. He met with Mr. Kishida, which was somewhat rare. Him and Mr. Kishida are not on very good speaking terms, but they did have a 2-hour dinner 2 weeks ago that we reported here. We don't know what the outcome was, but I think it was that he's not going to get a solid endorsement from Mr. Aso or from Mr. Kishida, either one of them. So he's wondering what his fates will hold. He's not that popular. He's not that well known among the voting public. He is very well known within LDP circles. Obviously, he's done a lot of favors for people, so he can call those in. He wouldn't have any trouble. Mr. Hayashi won't have any trouble. Ms. Kamikawa won't have any trouble. Kono Taro shouldn't have any trouble getting these 20 endorsements. Mr. Koizumi, they did a poll this last week, in fact, and Koizumi came out on top as the most popular candidate for LDP president. But there are others who are considering it, and probably before this week is out, we will have the entire roster of candidates for prime minister. We don't know right now, but Seiko Noda, and let me see, who else? There's an upper house member who has decided that he might throw his hat in too. The prime minister has never been selected from the upper house, but this Diet member decided, well, he's been in a couple of press conferences where he's been toying with the idea, which means that he might just actually run. And as far as what's the benefit for running, I think it's somewhat obvious. It's like with the governor's race we went through about a month ago with Koike winning and the 58 candidates, many of whom knew that they didn't have a chance of becoming governor, but for the publicity purposes. And that goes double for the prime minister's race. So I think it's a wise move for a politician to throw his hat in and go through that trial, that tribulation. The worst that could possibly happen is that you lose and people know your name. They know you as a person who ran but wasn't successful. But more likely than not, as soon as the president of the LDP becomes prime minister, he's got to put together his cabinet. And a certain portion of the population has voted, the LDP population has voted for any one of these candidates. So he's well advised to include them in his cabinet. So I think the benefits of running far outweigh the negatives. But there's a lot to be said going forward. We'll try and explain that. Actually, I think Dan Harada and I will schedule something a couple of days before the election to analyze where we are and what it means and what the prognosis is. And then a couple of days after the election to talk about what it means and what's going to happen and when the prime minister is going to form his cabinet and what kind of things look like they're going to happen. I've said that it looks like there might be a stimulus package that's formed rather quickly and then a general election. But it's very complicated because let's say the prime minister, the president of the LDP becomes prime minister in early October. In less than a month, it's the election for the president of the United States. And that's going to have a huge impact here. People are watching that. They are watching what words they use because it could be Kamala, it could be Trump, depending on which side of the fence you lean. It could have implications for geopolitics and military spending and all sorts of things. I mean, Japan and the United States are so intertwined. It's important to pay attention to that. So we will keep you informed on that. Next week, obviously, we'll be talking about who the candidates are. But even just prior to the election and right after the election, it won't be on a Sunday morning. It will be a lunchtime briefing, probably on a Tuesday and then following that on a Thursday. Stay tuned for that. And once again, the Constitutional Democratic Party is getting hot. You've got 3 candidates, maybe 5 candidates. There must be something in the water these days. I mean, this is practically unheard of. And what you would want is, if you have a political party here, is to show cohesion and strength of purpose and leadership and the ability to get things done. And when you have a leadership race with potentially 5 members, and the fact that the former prime minister and the former leader are battling it out with the current leader, it just expresses a little bit of just confusion within the political party. So if they want to be the number one, well, they kind of are the number one opposition party. If they want to do any better than what they're doing now with more seats in the next general election, yeah, this is pretty critical, and how they run it is critical too. It says a lot. The Komeito Party convention, like I said, the 15-year leader is going to continue. Is he not going to continue? I think you can read a lot into that about the potential of an election. He knows far more. He's more deeply engaged in that. If he sits and waits it out, you can probably guess that a general election is very close. The Bank of Japan governor Ueda, we know him. He was in the press just these last 2 weeks because the stock market tumbled after he adjusted interest rates. He made them a little bit higher, just a tiny bit, and the markets reacted wildly on Friday, and then on Monday, the Japanese stock market fell the most on Friday than it has in post-war history. And then on Monday, it did the same thing, and Monday was even bigger. The yen fell incredibly, and it caused a lot of turmoil here. In less than 5 days, we were back to normal. So this volatility is just really crazy. So the Diet called him in, the Financial Services Committee called him in, and he attended 2 meetings in the lower house and in the upper house on Friday, just 2 days ago, excuse me. And he was in the hot seat, and boy, was he walking on eggs. So everybody is watching and listening to every word he utters to be able to distill what he's going to do with the yen, with the interest rates, with the economy. And so the hearing was very heavily watched. I think he's going to be very careful. He did say, after being lambasted somewhat, that he will be a little bit more forward about discussing what the Bank of Japan is thinking, what they're discussing, so the population shouldn't be too spooked by any sudden movements, which is exactly what happened. So we'll see what happens there. The inflation rate for this last month took another uptick up. This is 28 consecutive months where the Bank of Japan has not been able to meet their inflation figure of 2%. They've been working on it. They just haven't hit that number. I think the inflation numbers for this last month and for July were a tick higher than the inflation rate this time last year. So it's up most of the time. Sometimes it's down. And Mr. Ueda is working on that and being criticized for not being a little bit more forthcoming in what he's doing and keeping the economy stable. But a lot of that relies a lot on the finance ministry and Mr. Kishida as well. At the same time, the Defense Department announced that they're going to be requesting in this year's budget the largest budget for the Defense Department in history. You know that the United States and Japan have been working on bolstering the defense industry here in Japan. And Japan committed to raising defense spending from 1%, where it was pretty historically, to 2%. Mr. Kishida decided this pretty unilaterally, and we are in year 3. So this is a tremendous amount of money. The amount of money being earmarked for 2025 is 8.5 trillion yen, which equates to 58.9 billion US dollars. And we're in year 3, 2 more years for this process to unfold, but you're going to see more and more of the deployment of these first strike capabilities for these domestically produced surface to ship missiles, and also submarine launched missiles, because Japan is really starting to beef up its capacity on building submarines, a submarine fleet, and arming them with launchers that can get, for example, the missiles that are coming in from North Korea, or if there should be kinetic action with Taiwan and China. So all of these things are being levered up. In somewhat related news, Japan, South Korea, and the United States are reconfirming their commitment to the relationship. It was just 1 year ago that they met in Camp David, you will remember. President Yoon, President Biden, and Mr. Kishida met in Camp David and talked about the relationship. They made great progress going forward. It's been exactly 1 year. And look at what we have. Mr. Yoon is a lame duck leader of South Korea. Mr. Kishida is on his way out. Mr. Biden is on his way out. They were planning on doing a summit, but I think it's a little bit early to have a summit with a brand new Japanese prime minister, a brand new leader of the United States. So it's on the boards, but it's a critically important part of the puzzle here, the relationship between Japan and South Korea. There's been steps forward, steps backwards. It's just one of those things. This last week, as you might know, of course, Kamala Harris accepted her nomination for the Democratic Party. She will be the nominee for President of the United States. She's pitted to run against Donald Trump, as I think everybody knows, unless you've been living under a rock. But Robert F. Kennedy announced he's a third-party candidate. He was running, and he decided that he was going to give up the race and endorse Donald Trump. That announcement was made on Friday. Huge news. It fell right after Kamala Harris made her acceptance speech, which I have heard was the best acceptance speech in the history of mankind. I heard that news just yesterday. So I haven't seen the whole thing. I think it went for maybe 37 minutes, a lot of applause, a lot of excitement in the Democratic Party. It's going to be a real race there. Let me see, what else do I have here? The Paralympics start on Wednesday, Maya. And that's it for me. I'm sure we've got plenty more. I apologize for my stuttering today. I just haven't had a cup of coffee yet. So let's go to the Q&A and see if we can do a better job there. Maya?
Okay, yes, thank you. You didn't stutter that much, you know. I expected something worse today, but well, anyway, I don't want to tease you too much because you haven't had any coffee yet, and it may be really. Right. Oh, your propeller there. Yes. Oh, that's very nice. Now I can say that there is a resemblance with Doraemon,
Yes.
right? Very nice. Very sweet.
Yes.
Well, so okay, Timothy, I would like to say thank you to our other sponsor today before we continue with the questions and answers. So to everybody who has watched us already, you know that our other sponsor is Houze Inc. And we're very grateful for the sponsorship. Houze Inc. is represented by Hana Urushizawa Howell, and she leads the team there. Houze Inc. Offers services in English and Japanese as well, and they work in home design and also commercial property construction and redesign as well. So if you are thinking about projects in these fields, please reach out to Hana on LinkedIn and connect with her. And you also find her contact details in the description of the video on YouTube. So thank you very much, Hannah and Houze Inc. And Timothy, let's continue now with the questions and answers. We have quite a few of them. So first, I would like to start with Hiroku-san's question because last week we couldn't answer it. And Hiroku-san, thank you so very much for letting us answer it this week. Sorry for keeping you waiting, and we appreciate your patience. So now let me read it out because it is here. Just a moment. Yes. Okay, so Hiroku-san writes, so this is the question about G7. And I actually misread it, so now we have it here. So the G7's influence is declining as their GDP share in the world is only 40%. It used to be 70% of the global GDP. So G7 should invite new members such as India. Well, I would like to hear your comments and thoughts, Timothy. Thank you in advance.
Yeah. So there are a lot of countries that are starting to come up, and there are a lot of countries that are going down, particularly the most advanced countries, not the United States because of their immigration policy, but the birth rate has been declining in the advanced countries pretty dramatically. And so, yes, the GDP is going to suffer as a consequence of that. Very definitely, I think India will be coming in. They do need to expand the number and the membership of G7 to make it relevant. And they're having a 2+2 right now in Delhi. 2+2 is the ministers of defense and foreign affairs meeting with their counterparts. And this time it is in India, so it's 2+2 in Delhi. And the relationship between India and Japan just has to grow better and bigger. Trade-wise, there's a lot of interaction, but there just seems to be not the affinity that one would expect, but Japan lacks affinity even with some of their closest neighbors. So it's just one of the challenges, and I think that there is a big drive to make Japan and India much closer, particularly militarily, economically. But I think the jury is still out on expanding G7. I think Hidoko has identified that before anybody else is really taking steps to do it. I'm sure people are watching that, but the G7 might be a vestige of just the immediate past. I don't know yet.
Okay, right. Thank you for sharing that. I also think that basically G7 will at some point need to expand in order to maintain some influence because of the declining GDP, the accumulated GDP of the countries there. But I also know that for some countries, being a member of G7 means that you are basically standing against other alliances like BRICS, right? So, and personally, when I talk with friends from Malaysia or Indonesia, I hear them say that, their countries, their governments, they do not want to be put in the position to choose between G7 and BRICS, right? They want to be able to work with both sides and both alliances so that they can be actually, they can benefit from those relationships. And I don't know, do you think that if India joins G7, if India is allowed to join G7, India may actually act as a bridge between those countries in Southeast Asia and G7 as an alliance?
I don't know. Excuse me. I think the more critical event is the dollar being the currency of global trade. And with the influence of BRICS increasing and China's Belt and Road, there's a real pressure being put on removing the US dollar. And that US dollar power base, I think, is shared by all of the G7. So should that hegemony by the United States having the dollar as their currency of trade disappear, the G7 might also be negatively impacted too. So you might have just a completely new setup of policy and defense. The whole system is in total flux right now, and we're suffering from that now here in Japan politics. But geopolitically, we see that all over the globe.
Okay, right. Well, I guess that this is one of those things that we will need to keep observing. So let's do that. So since we're
sorry, I didn't mean to dodge the question about
no.
India. It's pretty delicate there. India is a key element, but they trade with China. They trade with Russia. A lot of their military hardware is actually Russian. So they're kind of standing in between. So as you suggest, maybe they play a kind of a spoiler role or a bridge role. I don't know. I think it's too early to tell, but gosh, with so much in flux, anything is actually possible. I think we'll hear a little bit more maybe when the news from the 2+2 starts to trickle out.
Okay. Well, then let's keep following this. And since we're talking about external relations, about geopolitics, I'll jump to one question, or maybe two questions actually, from Surya Bumantara on YouTube. So, Surya, thank you very much for being with us today again. Before I actually read those questions, I want to say thank you very much to Jeffrey LaMonica and to everybody who has shared our posts, the briefings on LinkedIn. We appreciate all the
Yeah.
help we can get for, in spreading the word about these briefings, because we don't get many other people doing this, thankfully, or not. We don't know. But yes, thank you very much for doing this. And if you find these briefings helpful and insightful, please do share them even with your colleagues or friends, so that they can follow what is happening in Japan as a political scene, as a business environment, and also in the region as well, here, the Indo-Pacific region. So, and then let's see. So, Surya, thank you very much for being patient again. Surya writes, today marks the 1 year anniversary of China's ban on Japan's seafood because of radioactive water release. But recent reports said there are many Chinese fishing vessels in Japan's water despite the ban. So I guess it's safe to assume that the ban was because of political reasons. My question is, what can Japanese government do to make China lift this ban?
Actually, they've been working on it very, very diligently. They sent a delegation just recently, headed by Kono Taro's dad. Um, Kono Taro's dad he's not in the diet anymore, but he still wields a tremendous political weight. He took a delegation over to talk about trade and investment and different opportunities. You know, trade is the best way to kind of mollify this military tension. And when the Chinese decided they were going to cut off of all foodstuffs, and it wasn't just foodstuff; it's also fruit and vegetables as well. Um, that took a big hit. It turns out now that the United States is embedding much of the Japanese foodstuffs into their military diet throughout the world, to kind of supplement what the suffering that Japan is making, or the suffering that they're having. Hotate, the scallops, are being sold globally because they're not being sold in China. China was their largest market, and that's a pretty expensive item. Um, so I think, yeah, it is so curious. You put your finger right on it, that they've banned Japanese food stocks, but um, they're fishing the waters and supplementing the diet there. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I think it's with China and with geopolitics in general. There's always a tit for a tat. If you do this for me, then I'll do that for you. But you poisoned the water, so we're not going to be trading with you. And maybe it's a ploy just to get concessions elsewhere. But that's what it kind of sounds like to me. That's
Yeah.
a huge decision to make, to restrict the amount of food that comes into Japan, because China needs to import their food as well.
Right, it does. And the funny thing is that the Chinese government probably tried, to somehow make it difficult for Japan, and because of all those political things going on. But it seems that the Japanese seafood is finding larger acceptance in other parts of the world, which is, a kind of, I don't know. They didn't really get the point, the Chinese government. So, but anyway, yeah, it is happening. Chinese vessels, they're fishing here in Japanese waters. And I'll jump to one short or brief comment from Deborah. Deborah, thank you for being with us this morning again. So Deborah writes, Timothy Langley seems to be an interesting time. It seems to be an interesting time for Japanese politics. Is it something to be worried about? And before I let you answer this, Timothy, I want to say that yes, it is a very interesting time for Japanese politics, but it is also an exciting time for foreign companies that want to come to Japan, because it goes two ways, both ways. Japanese companies go overseas, and then overseas companies come to Japan with all the new production
Right.
and manufacturing capacities and capabilities that the Japanese government is Developing. So one thing that I wanted to say, and it is that basically, if there are companies that are willing to enter the Japanese market and need some government relations help, please do not hesitate to reach out to Timothy Langley because that's what his company does, and you can get permissions, from from the ministries here. You can get help in obtaining those permissions. So please remember that Timothy Langley will be there. Yes, and Timothy, I'll let you now answer the question of that Deborah had. Is this
I've,
something to worry about?
I've completely forgotten the question. But hi, Deborah. So yes, it is incredibly interesting times, and for those like Deborah or Maya or a lot of people that are in the audience, who have been here for a long time, one of the refrains are, nothing changes here. It's the same guys. They're running the country. They've got the same loud suits on. Nothing ever happens. You can't say that now. And I think when we come out of this crucible that we're in right now, Japanese politics will have changed. The faction system will have changed. I suspect that there's too many good benefits for, to have a faction that it was just bastardized. It was abused by some people who just wanted to benefit themselves, which is always a possibility when you're in politics. That you get so much power, you get a little bit hungry, you get a little bit covetous of some of the benefits that have been given to you as a consequence of representing so many people. But
Right.
yeah, it's such an exciting time, and I think when we come out of this, everybody's going to have to throw away their books about, you know, learning about Japanese politics and how decisions are made and how is policy and what's the balance between the bureaucracy and the members of the parliament and also the cabinet secretary's office and the prime minister. This will all be changing very, very rapidly. And I think you're going to see some new individuals also in positions of power. The power fight that we have right now, I think it will still be defined and decided by the big guys, by Mr. Aso, by Mr. Suga. Mr. Kishida has said he's not going to be participating. Um, he could throw his weight behind somebody and enhance their chances, but it could be possible that he's just sick of it. He's taking care of the LDP. He's taking care of the factions. They don't like him. He doesn't like them. I'm just going to step back. I'll be a member of parliament and watch you guys kind of fumble through it yourself. But it
Yes.
is, yeah, as you say, very interesting times, and that's why the audience numbers for our show, Maya, have just skyrocketed over the last 2 months in particular. There's always
Yeah.
something going on. There's a by-election. There's something else going on. There is a by-election for the LDP young lady or lady who resigned because of the money she was skimming from the
Mm,
diet secretary's
right.
salary. So she will have her election in probably October. You're supposed to do it at a very set time, this by-election. So it looks like her seat will be filled in a by-election in October, September, October. It's just right around the corner. The LDP, I'm sorry to go off schedule just a little bit. The LDP has said that they're not going to run a candidate in her district because the negatives are just so high. They probably can't find a candidate, and even if they did, that person would probably lose because of what she did. Japanese politics.
Japanese politics. And this is a very nice segue actually into the next comment, which we have from Seiichiro Manabe-san. So on LinkedIn, and I will read it out to you. So having multitude candidates from the same faction run for the presidency is effective in giving the impression of reform.
Yes.
Assuming that the battle will be decided in the second runoff vote, I imagine that the candidates will be conscious of their performance. So I think that this is a
Yeah.
very good observation. Really, a great comment. So
It is a great comment, and just to fill everybody in, so we're all on the same page. In the election for president of the LDP, there are 2 rounds. Sometimes you don't go to the second round because there are only 2 candidates. Whoever wins a majority of the votes, or yeah, the majority of the votes becomes the president. So when there are like 6 or 7 or 8, nobody's going to do that. You're definitely going to have the second round. And in the second round, they pick the 2 biggest vote getters, and then they run off together.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that who's really, gosh, that's tough. If everybody loves Shinjiro
Koizumi.
Koizumi,
Yeah.
he could become prime minister, but he's not battle tested. I mean, running a country at times like this, I think a lot of people would sit back. They might vote for him in the first vote, but in the second vote, I think they want some experience, and that's where Mr. Ishiba looks pretty good. Mr. Motegi, even Kono Taro. So it's really a tough race, a tough decision, but it will be decided, as you said. Who asked the question?
Oh no, that's a comment from. Okay, Manabe-san.
Oh, okay, yeah, a
Link.
great observation. That it is the second round that's going to decide who's the president.
Right. Yes. So thank you very much for that comment, Seichiro-san, and Timothy. Thank you also for
Thank
the
you.
clarification again. So we have quite a few comments both on LinkedIn and YouTube. So I'll go through them in hopefully chronological order. So we have Byron Johnston. His question is: are certain candidates put up by previous faction leaders to split the vote of others? For example, Ms. Noda to split Ms. Takaichi's vote, and Mr. Saito, Meti's minister, to split those of Mr. Ishiba.
No,
Both were previously in the Ishiba faction.
no, I don't think so. I think it's more of a personal. It's not the factions. I mean, even if the factions were vibrant and established today, the choice to become a candidate is very personal. You have to get those 20 endorsements. So if the faction supports you, or if that policy study group supports you, they might have requests for you, please run. But I think the reason why you're running is obviously to become prime minister, maybe not this time, but next time. You've thrown your hat in once, you're going to throw it in again. Mr. Ishiba has done it 5 times now. Okay. So you become, as a consequence of that, a person to have to be dealt with. You're going to probably get another cabinet seat, which also enhances your chances. It also increases your power base. But I don't think it's to split the vote. I think it's genuinely because they want to become prime minister now or in the next round. And becoming a candidate is a very big deal. It's not death defying. If you lose in the election, it doesn't mean you're going to lose your seat. It actually enhances you. So I think similar to the Tokyo governor's election and the election boards there, it's, people will throw their hat into the ring because it's a good idea.
Right. Okay. Yes, thank you. I'm just, running through the comments and questions, so please forgive me for the slow reaction from time to time. I'll try to be quicker. All right. And then once again from Brian Johnston, there is a comment about the G7 and G20 question earlier. So he says that probably at best the G7 should meet as a subset of G20 during 20 summit. So thank you very much for that comment.
Not the other way around. Yeah.
Not the other way around. Yeah. Well, yes. Thank you very much for that comment as well. And I continue now with Yuka's comment. Yuka, omatase shimashita. I apologize, for talking to you in Japanese. Please forgive me. And you don't have to answer now because Clubhouse hasn't allowed us yet, to just hear directly the questions from there. So anyway, thank you very much for the question, Yuka. And Timothy, here we go. So Yuka writes, I have a comment and a question. The comment is, I asked ChatGTP to update me on LDP leadership election. It declined to answer, saying the election topic was too complex.
How about that?
Right. This has convinced me Timothy is irreplaceable. Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
for you, Timothy. Yes. Thank you, Yuka. And the question is, I have heard that Mr. Koizumi was annoyed by the fact that his intention to run in the September election was leaked to the media before his target announcement date. I
Yeah,
also heard that he gathered almost 40 supporters to qualify as a candidate. Does the timing just a moment. Okay, going back because we have does the timing of the candidacy announcement affect a candidate's chances of winning an LDP leadership election? How,
absolutely.
okay, yes.
Yeah. So look at Kobayashi. He was the first to announce. Before that, a lot of people hadn't heard of him. They didn't consider him to be, a serious contender. He came out of the stall really strong, and he's been in the press almost every day since then. So yes, I thought that did him really. That gave him great advantage. Um, Also, Mr. Ishiba announcing, uh, he really, if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to possess leadership qualities, that's the kind of thing that you do. You don't, couch your bets and, hem and haw, and then wonder if you're going to do it or not. You're distinctive in your motions, and I think this report that Mr. Koizumi was a bit peeved that the story was leaked. It's I think he's angry because somebody leaked it who he trusted. So he feels that he's got a little bit of insecurity within the team that he has, and he's been groomed to take over as prime minister. It's a little bit early now. He's been groomed ever since he took over his father's seat. His father is in the background coaching him and guiding him. Um, and his father actually said, I don't know if this is the time for you, son. But I think I mean, with so many candidates and the lack of factions and the ability of Diet members to vote with their hearts, he got 40. He doesn't need 40. I think if you get 20, you stop because that's all you need. And, candidates, um, yeah, you just don't need more than 20. And
Mhm,
some of the people who might give you an endorsement can share their endorsement with somebody else, somewhat reflective of what the earlier question was from, I think, Byron, that splitting the vote. Yeah, you might have some Diet members who want to do that, who take it upon themselves with a couple of friends to kind of split that vote because then it enhances somebody else. But there is politics in the background. It's just not as obvious as the faction making that sort of a decision.
right. Yes. Thank you very much for that. And since we are still on this topic about the factions and the presidential election of the LDP, I have two other comments. One of them comes from YouTube, and the other one is from Clubhouse. So YouTube, Gabor, thank you very much for watching. And the question or comment, it's rather a comment. Please forgive me for just seeing it as a question. This is a fascinating election. I can't remember such an open, long, and so unpredictable race with so many potential candidates vying for the top post. So, Timothy, I think that earlier in this briefing you mentioned that there must be something in the water. So,
Yes, and talking about volatility and not being able to figure it out. They did a poll. I didn't read the numbers to you. Koizumi came on top of the poll with 23%. It's not that huge, but it's 23%. He ranked
mm,
the highest. Number two was Mr. Ishiba. Of all the people that was polled, 18% said we want Mr. Ishiba to be the next prime minister. Number three was Sanai Takaichi at 14%, and Kono Taro was probably 2 points below that, around 12%. So
mhm,
you've got those people kind of decided by popular vote, but the popular vote is incredibly fickle and not very accurate. They
mhm,
put Mr. Ishiba in front of Mr. Abe and Mr. Who else was a candidate? Um, a couple of years ago, and Mr. Ishiba ranked first in the popularity poll, not Mr. Abe and whoever the third candidate was. And the whole thing was flipped upside down when it came for this second vote, this stage 2 of the vote. So you really don't know. It's awful hard to predict. And like ChatGPT said, it's too complex to kind of make a solid call on it. And most of the guessing turns out to be wrong anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding how the process moves and what that means. So, for example, if you're a candidate and you've got 20 people who have endorsed you, and then you run and you win, you have these other candidates who you defeated who want to have some role in the cabinet. So you need to do some distribution there, but you've got your 20 people that endorsed you too. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
endorse you, but I sure would like to be Minister of Justice. How about it? And at that point in time, you might say, yes, I just need one more endorsement. You're really key. And you would be bringing so much more prestige to me. So if you want to be Minister of Justice, okay, please give me your endorsement. So they're really spread out. And you've got maybe 8 or 10 people that are going through the same process. So how politics is decided after that, with all of the indebtedness that they have, wow, this calculus that you have, let's say you become the prime minister and you have to form your cabinet in pretty short order, probably within 10 days. You have to announce your cabinet. You have to move from being president of the LDP to becoming prime minister. It doesn't happen naturally. It doesn't happen. It has a process to happen. You're the president of the LDP, and then the LDP has a motion to for the prime minister to resign, and then you have to have a new prime minister. And when you have a new prime minister, everything starts all over. The cabinet resigns en masse. It's not quite as drastic as having a general election. When you have the general election, of course, the prime minister resigns, the cabinet resigns, all of the members of the lower house resign, and they start all over again. And then a new cabinet and a new prime minister is elected. So it's a little bit more reduced than that, but it is very tumultuous and over a very brief period of time.
Right. And also, what I find fascinating too is that, well, one of the stars in the previous presidential election, Kono Taro, is not a star anymore, right? He has kind of being overpassed by, well, people like the young Koizumi and also the Kobayashi-san and so on and so on. It's just so different. And I wonder, is this an indication that well, who the candidates will be for LDP presidency and premiership in the next, maybe the period of the next 15 years or so?
Yeah. I follow that too. I still think Kono Taro is a star. I don't think he's been diminished. People like to say, my number, all of these things that were going on in his ministry. It's not his fault.
No,
People
we did.
just love to talk about that, and it just makes good press. But I think it's the press, it's the news reporting that brings Kobayashi up. He's fresh. He was in the
Mhm.
ministry. He went to Harvard. He's so cool. But you've got the same thing with Mr. Hayashi. They're all excellent. So it's
Right.
just the story, selling newspapers and making a story out of it. And I don't discount Kono Taro being prime minister at all, but
Mhm.
it's going to be a very tough race.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. And so once again, we have a comment from Ryan in Clubhouse. He writes, given that the LDP will likely have to form a coalition to have their majority after this election,
Yeah,
how do you anticipate the LDP's agenda to change to accommodate that?
I didn't catch the last part. How what?
How do you anticipate the LDP's agenda changing to accommodate that
Oh,
need to form a coalition for
yeah.
majority?
So this is from who?
From Ryan Banjie.
Ryan. Great question, Ryan. So what this presupposes is that there's going to be a general election, and the LDP will do tremendously bad. And the reason why Mr. Kishida decided not to run is because, as the leader, he was unpopular in a general election. the LDP is more likely to lose its majority and therefore be forced into some sort of a distasteful coalition with somebody else, maybe the Democratic Party or the Democratic People's Party, or somebody else, maybe Ishin, or who knows. They don't want to do that, but I think the reason why we're having this election now and why Mr. Kishida has decided to do it this way is getting maybe even a female in there or somebody younger to revitalize the LDP. And I think the legacy of Mr. Kishida, looking back on it in 2 years' time, we will laud him for his vision and his the dynamic way that he's changed the LDP. He's already done that. It's just that it's clouded in a lot of animosity right now. But given a couple of years' time, you're going to see he's changed Japanese politics forever. And I think this change that he's triggered will also potentially revitalize the LDP so that they don't lose that much. The LDP is not running a candidate in that member's region. Remember, I told you that she resigned because of taking the money
That's
for the
yeah,
secretary.
that's Iwate, I believe.
Okay, right. So they're not doing that because they know they're going to lose. Similarly, with the general election, they know they're going to lose. Everybody remembers the kickback scandal. They remember the guy in their district who got,
Hmm.
Sanzenman or whatever. They dislike it. The LDP has always been kind of painted as dirty money politics and big business. And when you have evidence that that is in fact the case, people have long memories and they vote. They vote with the passion. So it is likely that there should be a coalition formed if they do so poorly. With Mr. Kishida running and becoming prime minister again, I think you're going to lose the majority, at least in the lower house, maybe not in the upper house. But moving forward, yes, everybody is keen on that. The prime minister himself even said it. The reason why I'm doing this is to reform the LDP, to get more new people in there. It shouldn't be Mr. Suga. It shouldn't be Mr. Aso. It shouldn't be me. We're old guys. Get some new blood in there. That was, I think, the underground story to his announcement. It's a little bit early to talk about a coalition government. Nobody wants to do it or talk about it, but I think um, let's do the president first, become the prime minister, form the cabinet, and then I think you have a little bit better of a feel for it then. But it's a little bit too early to say too much about it. But a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And the shock to the system that
Yes.
Mr. It's yesterday. I think I was thinking that Mr. Abe. I know that he was. Well, of course, everybody knows that he was a great politician. And even though the opinion, public opinion within Japan and out of Japan differ greatly, so he still was a unifier within the LDP. So, and I already believe, I also believe that that unifying power he had helped the LDP achieve quite a lot of things. So, and you said that what Mr. Kishida did by disbanding the factions and everything. So, it was really a shock to the system, and it has changed Japanese politics, and probably it has changed the politics for the better. But at the same time, I don't think that people within the LDP will really hold Mr. Kishida in very high regard because of what he did.
No.
Right? So it is we live in fascinating times indeed.
Yes.
It's just, observing what is going on and seeing all the changes that we never thought we would see is really great.
In a span of 1 year, this whole scandal, this kickback scandal, broke in November.
Yeah.
We're not even in September. In less than a year, this has happened.
Right. It's, yeah, time. Oh, the
Tremendous.
speed is actually accelerating. Yes. Thank you. All right. And we have two more questions. One of them is on YouTube, and it is from somebody with a handle name Tunes. So, and Tunes writes, the CDP and JCP um, have reaffirmed the need for cooperation.
Yes.
Is there anything new worth commenting on there?
No, the latest news I have is their decision to work collaboratively. They don't have enough candidates to run in every district. So those districts that they do have a good smattering of voters, they want to win. So they're kind of splitting it. They're saying, I'll take this one. You don't run a candidate here. And maybe say something nice about us so that your voters, since they don't have your candidate in this district, they might run or they might vote for ours and take us over the top so that we have a candidate there. And similarly, in your district, we don't have many voters there, but we'll say something nice about you. We won't run a candidate to split the vote, and we'll say something nice so that our voters are compelled to maybe vote for you because they don't want to vote for the LDP. They don't want to vote for whoever else. But that's the latest, and that conversation, that news broke out probably 4 weeks ago. So it's not new news, but I don't have anything recent to report on that. But I'll keep my eye out for it. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. And we have a comment from Thomas. Tom, thank you very much for the validation and everything and the
Thank you,
questions and
Thomas.
comments as well. So Thomas' comment is the Kishida-Yoon-Biden trilateral dynamic was a good start. It needs to continue to have concrete and substantial life after the two of these are gone from the scene, and three in several years. So, if you have, if you want to share your thoughts on this, Timothy.
No, I just absolutely, I can't think of a relationship that's more critical to the region than Japan and South Korea. I mean, it is just so vital. And we keep stumbling because of historical memory and, still, the Korean economy, Korean culture, Korean religion has all suffered. I mean, that colonial period was long and very torturous. So, yeah, it's too bad that we can't, I mean, in the United States and Japan had a really bad relationship, but it wasn't for 45 years,
Right.
So I think it just requires, like Tom said, more focus, more dedication, more assets, more commitment. And when you have this change of leadership, it's awful hard to kind of going from hiccups to something that's smooth and solid and robust. And that's what we really need.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. Well, Timothy, it seems that we have really gone through all the questions at this point of time. To everybody watching us, if you have question, even now or after we finish this live stream, just share it on the platform you're on, and we'll address it next time, next Sunday, when Timothy will be reporting from who knows where. Right. So with this, Timothy, thanks a lot again
Thank you very much, Maya.
for the briefing. Yes, informative. And to everybody watching us, Timothy is he has been in Japan for a collective 40 years, more than 40 years. I don't want to say how many because it will put him into the era of dinosaurs, but yes. So he has been in politics for all that time, and he has been doing advocacy.
Just say a quarter of my life.
Yes, a quarter of your life, right? So, and yeah, if you need help with government relations and public policy, reach out to him. He'll be very happy to reply to you and talk with you, I'm sure, about this. And before we finish, I would like to say thank you very much to our sponsors, both of them. Kanchu.com and James there with Houze Inc. and Hannah there. So if you're thinking about any projects in the areas of real estate, buying or selling or renting a house or home design or commercial property design and construction, reach out to one of them and they'll be very happy to work with you. To everybody, once again, thanks a lot for being with us. Please remember to share these podcasts with your friends and colleagues if you think that they'll benefit from the briefings. We'll be very happy to when we see that.
Yes.
And right, Timothy. So if you have a few words in closing, please go.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It really is so rewarding. We do this for free every week, and like manna from heaven when you write to us and say what a great show, what great content you provide. I get it from you all the time. It really helps keep our spirits up and keep us going. Thank you so much for that. And also the synopsis is taking off like fire. It's getting so much readership, far greater than actually our video show. So thank you very much for sharing that too.
Thank you. Well, that's all for today. Well, everybody watching, have a great day.
Thank
Or,
you.
well, yes, Timothy, you too.
Thank you.
And please come back next Sunday at 8:20 so that, yeah, we'll enjoy listening to the news once again.
I'll have coffee next time.
Oh, yes, that's very important. Make
Yes.
sure you do.